anime isn't funny. I'm sure many of you watching this will agree with this statement right here. A lot of humor in anime relies heavily on cringy tropes, formulaic jokes, and in general, just kinda suck at making you laugh. And for the most part, I would unfortunately have to agree that a lot of anime just aren't very funny. However, this isn't all anime, and for this video, I have completed the arduous task of searching far and wide to find 5 funny anime, and I believe I've achieved this lofty goal. I believe these 5 anime cover a variety of comedy styles, and each of these animes got a laugh out of me personally. However, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is that comedy is subjective. Now I myself am not the judge of what should be deemed funny and what shouldn't. While every show on this list got me laughing, they could very well have you absolutely stone-faced, and that's okay. Some of us are a little different, and by different, I mean weird. But I think my picks are varied in their comedy styles, and most of them are relatively safe picks to be perfectly honest. So if you somehow don't laugh at a single anime on this list, then anime comedy might just not be for you. But lastly, before I begin, these aren't the only funny anime out there. I'm sure there are tons of other funny anime, and I already know I missed some of the big ones. I definitely haven't seen every funny anime out there, so if you guys have any suggestions, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's hop into my picks for the 5 funniest anime. And for our first anime on the list, I'm going with one that I've watched quite recently. When researching for this video, a common anime kept coming up, and that was none other than The Disastrous Life of Saiki K. At first I was thinking, there is no way this bubblegum head ass is ever going to be funny. But after giving it a watch, I couldn't have been more wrong because wow is this show funny. This show follows Saiki K, an extremely powerful, and I mean extremely powerful psychic. At one point he says he manipulated the DNA of every human on Earth just so that it's normal for people to have different colored hair. If that isn't dedicated to you, then I don't know what is. But anyway, Saiki wishes to hide his powers and live an ordinary and quiet life. However, the people surrounding him are anything but ordinary. I think everyone will have a different character they find the funniest. You got Nendo with his bald chin, who is the resident dumbass who is so stupid that not even Saiki's mind reading powers can affect him. You've got Kaido, who thinks he's in some sort of anime and thinks a secret organization called Dark Reunion is out to get him. I would also like to point out that every time this man is on screen and does something, the soundtrack plays a song that goes and it cracks me up every single time. You have Hyro, the class representative, who is always amped up to the extreme. You also got Terahashi, who believes she is the perfect woman and can't fathom the idea of someone not falling in love with her at first sight. Which of course when Saiki doesn't, it causes her to basically have an existential crisis. There are tons of other characters, but my favorite has got to be the parents. They have such a weird and wacky relationship. Some parts they're lovey-dovey, and next thing you know they are borderline abusive. Every time they're in an episode, I always know it's going to be a funny one. But speaking of funny, this show is really smart with its jokes. They push them to their extremes without making the jokes feel stale or overdone. The show is surreal in its comedy, pushing the logic of its universe to their limits. It also pushes the limits of how utterly stupid some of these characters can be, but in a good way. These characters are dumb as rocks to the point it's laughable, which, you know, is the entire reason why we're here. However, what ties every part of this show together is Saiki himself. While his powers are, well, overpowered, they are more of a hindrance to him. For example, while his telepathy allows him to read minds, it can't be turned off, leading to him constantly hearing voices wherever he goes. This causes him to have a perpetually annoyed attitude toward, well, everything. His deadpan reactions and explanations to the batshit insanity of what's happening in the show are the perfect complement, resulting in hilarious moments left and right. At first, I thought he would be annoying due to the excessive explanations, but I don't think it was ever too much to make me not enjoy the show. When it comes to pure comedy, this show might take the cake for the best of all the shows on this list. However, the drawback with this show is that the comedy is its main objective. Well, at least as far as I'm aware. I've only seen the first season, and throughout it, there isn't much in the way of an overarching plot, nor is there really any meaningful character development. You could argue that Saiki does see subtle development in his relationships with others throughout the show, and I would definitely agree. But it is subtle, it's not the main focus of the show. The other shows on this list have something else to offer besides just comedy, whether it be narratively or action-wise, so if you don't find a show funny, then there really isn't much else in it for you. But if you're looking for just a comedy and comedy only, then this is definitely the show for you. But like I said, if you were looking for something with more meat on the bones, then look no further than Mob Psycho 100. Heh, see what I did there? Studio Bones, meat on the bones, huh?
Shut your fucking mouth!
But anyway, I'm sure many of you have heard people sing its praises and talk about how great of a show it is, and for good reason. It's got a tight woven plot, amazing characters, great action, and of course for this video, it's just really funny. This show follows Kageyama Shigeo, also known as Mob, who is yet another psychic born with really overpowered abilities. Huh, that's 2 in a row, weird. But anyway, we follow him as he not only navigates the world of being a psychic, but also the world of adolescence and growing up. It's a great character study as such a deep and complex character. But of course, we're not really here to talk about all that. When it comes to the comedy of Mob Psycho, it's in the other characters that really make it happen. You've got Reagan, the Body Improvement Club, Reagan, the Telepathy Club, Reagan, Dimple, and oh yeah, did I mention Reagan? Because holy guacamole is this man hilarious. I swear every time he busts out one of his special moves, it always gets me dying. But I do jest, other characters in the show pull off comedy very well. It's just that Reagan is the pinnacle of that comedy, and nobody can tell me otherwise. But of course, like everything else in the show, Reagan is more than a comic relief. He's also a very complex character with his own moments within the show. And that can be said with just about every comic relief character in the show. They each have their moments of their own personal meaning to Mob's character. While the show overall doesn't take itself too seriously, there are serious moments within the show, but they are spliced beautifully between lighthearted moments with these characters. Sometimes the show takes a more slice of life approach, and it's more than welcome as it knows not only how to create great character moments, but funny ones at that. The show has a sort of whimsical nature to it. It's apparent in the art style and general vibe of the show. I think it adds to the overall comical atmosphere the show provides. The simple yet expressive character designs, the zany animation makes jokes land harder than they would otherwise. The jokes themselves may be simple, but the way they are presented makes them funnier. Overall, if you're looking for a show that will not only just make you laugh, but make you feel hyped, sad, or generally feel wholesome, then this show is the whole shebang. Out of all the shows on the list, many would argue that it's actually this one with the best writing. But of course, when it comes to comedy, this show definitely does not disappoint. However, be aware that this show is more than a comedy, so if you want just a comedy, then the other shows on this list may be a better fit for you. But anyway, on to the next anime. Up next we have Spy Family, a pretty popular anime I'm sure you've all heard of, and for good reason. And alright, I'ma just get this out of the way now, I am not pronouncing the X. I know some of you will yell at me for this, but Spy Family is just more efficient to pronounce, okay? But continuing on, I know this is a pretty safe pick, but I think that's to its benefit. Out of all the shows on this list, if you had to recommend a comedy anime to someone who has never seen anime before, this would probably be one of the first ones you recommend. It's charming, it's wholesome, it's inoffensive, and most importantly, it's pretty funny. For those somehow unaware of what the show is about, Spy Family is not about just any family, oh no, but a pretend family formed with the goal of benefiting each member's interests. However, each member also has a secret identity as well as an ulterior motive. Lloyd Forger on the outside just wants someone to fill in as his child's parent, but secretly is a spy whose mission is world peace, with his main objective being to get closer to his target through his daughter's school system. Your Forger desires to keep his family not only to make her seem less suspicious to the government, but also to disguise her other job, which is being a badass assassin. And finally, the daughter, Anya Forger, is, oh, what do you know? Another goddamn psychic. Somehow we've progressively gotten younger and weaker with each psychic. I promise I did not plan this out like this. Well anyway, Anya here can read minds and is infatuated with anything she deems as being exciting. I think what sells the show is these three main characters and how they play off each other. Lloyd is calm and calculating, often using the most logical methods to overcome his challenges. Yor is well a bit aloof, often being overly polite and keeping to herself. However, none of these characters would be funny at all if it weren't for Anya. Anya is full of energy, always looking for ways to have fun. But not only that, she brings out the more comical nature of the two other main characters. Lloyd is repeatedly stumped by the cruel and harsh world that is parenting, and that logical nature of his is broken down in very hilarious ways by Anya, well, being Anya. But she also reveals a softer side to Lloyd, showing that he does care about this false family of theirs. The same can be said with Yor. Anya is always getting into trouble, which gives Yor a more protective and murderous attitude. But still, she definitely develops this bond with both Anya and Lloyd that is distinct, but all these pale in comparison to the greatest character of them all, and that of course is Bond, baby. Yeah, Bond, the dog, best character indeed. But seriously, Anya is the glue that really makes most of the jokes land. She is simultaneously the most naive character in the show, yet she's also the character with the most information regarding what is happening due to her psychic abilities. This makes for each situation she's in just comical. But of course, the rest of the cast have their moments as well. In my opinion, I think this show gets off to a slow start in terms of comedy, but once all the characters settle into their roles, it becomes an absolute blast. The show keeps coming up with so many unique situations to put these characters in, which always brings out the comical nature in them. Overall, Spy Family just has this feel-good humor to it. It's a show about found family and how there are ups and downs to it. Each situation they're in is not only a funny moment, but also a chance to see them grow, develop their relationships, and truly show they care for each other. It may not be laugh out loud, rolling on the floor crying funny, but at the very least they got a few chuckles out of me. But more importantly, it'll just put a goofy smile on your face, and I think that's all it needs to do. But anyway, next anime. Bocchi the Rock is about a young girl who struggles with extreme social anxiety to the point where it is a serious detriment to her life. But despite that, she strives for one goal, to be part of a kick-ass band. And soon her dreams start to become a reality as she is thrust into the position she's always wanted. And throughout her journey, you get to witness her grow as a person and overcome those obstacles that held her back so much. But we're not here to talk about all that. We're here to talk about the goofs, the gags, the hee-hees and the ha-has. Are they any good? And well, yes, of course, or else I wouldn't be talking about it. Now, if you know anything about the show, you are probably expecting me to talk about the wild and wacky animation or creative usage of different mediums besides just 2D animation. And yes, that is a huge factor. This show is zany in its presentation, which makes for some really surreal jokes. I really enjoyed every time they would experiment with different animation styles and mediums. This made every joke or moment feel unique and different. But I don't think that's at the heart of what makes Bocchi so funny. I think it's more so Bocchi herself, more importantly, the relatability of Bocchi. Now I'm just gonna say this up front and be perfectly honest. I don't know if I have social anxiety. I've never gotten it checked out or diagnosed. Don't get me wrong, I believe heavily in mental health and have a slew of mental problems of my own, but I would say I am a fairly socially anxious person. And by that, I mean I just don't like talking to people. But even with just that, I relate heavily to Bocchi's struggles. The need to build up courage to ask someone something, the snowballing thoughts, the wild fantasies, and her general nervous energy are all things I relate to in my own life. Oh god, maybe I really do have social anxiety. Well, that's a problem for another time. Now, some people have instead criticized Bocchi's portrayal of anxiety, stating things such as it's too dramatic or it's over-exaggerated, with the common statement from these dissenters being, nobody acts like this in real life. And yes, of course, no one turns into a blob when their bangs get pushed away, but I think these people fail to see the bigger picture with Bocchi. Yes, her reactions are exaggerated to an extreme. However, the basis of the things she is experiencing are real things people go through on a day-to-day basis. Yes, nobody goes Super Saiyan when they're about to quit their job, but that feeling of having to hype yourself up to do something socially risky is a real feeling that I'm sure many of you have felt. And it's this way of exaggerating very real feelings where Bocchi's comedy shines. It plays out the feelings of anxiety and social aversion to get you to laugh, but the core concept they're playing up is relatable to many who struggle with it, making the jokes even funnier. For people with extreme social anxiety, it's a way to laugh at themselves and the absurdity of anxiety, while still acknowledging the struggle that goes along with it. And sometimes laughing at yourself can be a sort of coping mechanism. For me, the show's visualization of anxiety is absurd and makes me laugh, but it also inspires me to overcome it. By depicting it as such, I find it makes my personal anxious feelings easier to deal with by showing me how irrational my thoughts are in the grand scheme of things. Plus, the moments where she does push through and overcome her anxiety are all the more inspiring. Like I said, I don't know if I have full-blown social anxiety or not, so I leave it up to those who do to tell me how they feel when watching this show. But from the positive reception it has received, it seems to have hit home with a lot of people who struggle with the same thing. I just think that when a comedy can do more than just make us laugh, but also be relatable in the way Bocchi is, it's a beautiful feeling. but if you don't have social anxiety, there are still other characters to relate to. Each of the members of Keisoku Band differs in socialness. You got Kita, who is the extremely extroverted one, Nijika, who is a bit in the middle, but I would say she's more in the socially outgoing category, and finally my favorite of the band, Ryol, who is the social loner of the group. I would say I personally relate to Ryol the most, simply because I share her sentiment of liking the feeling of being alone. However, what sets me back is the fact that I have the social skills of Bocchi, which is yet another problem on my plate that we'll have to deal with later. But yeah, the entire cast is filled with colorful characters that make the show a blast to watch. All in all, Bocchi the Rock is a fantastic show that absolutely deserves your attention, especially if you struggle with social anxiety. Now, these shows haven't been in any particular order up until now, but I do have to have a favorite out of all these shows, and this last pick is certainly that. What do I consider to be the pinnacle of anime comedy? Well, I'm glad you asked, because to be honest, a big reason I made this video was just so I could go gushing grannies on this show. On certain days, I could consider it to be my favorite anime of all time. But I know some of you are probably dying to know what it is, so I'll just get this over with. My number one pick for the funniest anime I've seen is none other than, drumroll please, Kaguya-sama Love is War. Alright, I already know some of y'all are thinking, oh my god, another guy glazing Kaguya-sama yet again. And yeah, you know what? A lot of people have glazed this show to no end, especially on YouTube. But god damn it, I am joining in the list, cause this show is genuinely incredible. It is one of the few shows that absolutely deserves all the hype. For those somehow unaware of what this show is about, it's a rom-com, obviously, about the student council president Shirogane and vice president Kaguya. They both have fallen for each other, but the catch is that neither is willing to confess, as they see love as war, in which the confessor is the one who loses. So the entire show follows the two as they come up with elaborate schemes to get the other to confess. And with this simple premise, the show just goes bonkers with it, coming up with so many creative and unique situations ripe for scheming and funny moments. But it's not just these two characters. Everything the other shows have done so far, I feel Kaguya does it just as well, if not better. The animation goes wild sometimes, giving doses of that absurdist humor from Saiki and Bocchi. It has the character development of Mob Psycho, while also having a cast that easily rivals the main three in Spy Family. And finally, for some of you at least, it may even have the relatability of Bocchi. And if it doesn't, then well, I'm sure one day love will find you. But speaking of love, I absolutely adore every character in this show. It starts off with just Kaguya, Shirogane, and Chika, and it's a perfect start. Kaguya and Shirogane are both so cold and calculating, but Chika acts as this wild card that always throws off their game. But then you get more characters, each one is just banger after banger. Hayasaka, Ino, and of course the fucking GOAT, Ishigami, and you suddenly have a full cast of characters to fall in love with. They not only have great laughs for each character, but they each get a respectable amount of screen time dedicated to fleshing them out and discovering who they are. But by far one of the best parts of Kaguya-sama is the running gags. I'm sure you all know what this is, but basically it's just a joke that repeats itself throughout a work or series. And in a way, the entire show is just one big running gag. Every episode involves Shirogane and Kaguya fighting to get the other to confess. But like I said, each time they think of new ways to freshen it up, make it new, and more importantly, make it just as hilarious each time. And every other gag is just the same. Each time it feels different and unique and you're waiting to see how they switch it up, but the joke largely remains the same. The best example I can give is with Shirogane being constantly taught by Chika. This joke is classic and a staple throughout the series. The thing is though, the joke is mostly the same. Shirogane sucks at something, Chika is shocked by his incompetence, but ultimately helps him become better at whatever is troubling him. However, each time they give the joke a new paint job and make it feel unique and fresh. It always feels new while still retaining its familiar essence. To top it all off, in season 3 they put the joke on his head in a really clever way that also got me laughing as well. It's just so smart with its jokes and knows how to keep them going without making them stale. To be honest, I've just scratched the surface with this show, and I wouldn't mind making an entire video dedicated to Kaguya-sama if you guys would like it. However, before you check out Kaguya-sama, I have to tell you a story so you don't go down the rabbit hole that I did. I watched Kaguya-sama on a whim. I didn't expect much, but as you can clearly see, I was pleasantly surprised. So naturally, I wanted more, and thus began my descent down the anime rom-com rabbit hole. So I watched another rom-com, then another, and finally after a few more, I came to a saddening realization. I had already hit the peak with Kaguya, and everything from there was downhill. Now, this isn't to say that the other rom-coms I watched were bad. In fact, some of them were pretty decent, and others deserve to rot in the pits of hell. To be honest, I actually have a lot to talk about regarding some of these shows, and I may talk about them in a later date. But they all had one unfortunate thing in common. Barely any of them were funny. Some of them were entertaining, sure, but humorous? Hell no. And thus with this realization, I looked elsewhere to find my comedy fix. However, with this video, I'm hoping to see if some of you know any actually funny rom-com anime out there. So if you do, then please let me know, because Love is War has been gone for way too long, and I need my fix. But that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this because I sure had fun rewatching some great anime. Let me know if I should do more anime content in the future. I have some ideas for some other projects relating to anime, and I wouldn't mind following up on this video, maybe a part 2, or talking about some other anime I've watched that personally didn't hit the mark on being funny. Or maybe something completely different, who knows. This doesn't mean gaming videos are off the table, as I'm really open to doing anything. But yeah, that's about it from me. If you liked this video, then please like, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of every upload, and I will catch you another time.